My hands trembled with silent rage as my rich wife smirked across the Christmas table. "The garage is ready for you," she announced, the words dripping with cruelty as her family burst into laughter. Forks clinked against fine china. Glasses sparkled with expensive wine, and I sat there like a tolerated intruder, the husband they mocked but never respected. For 5 years I had endured this theater. I let them believe I was nothing, just a man who stumbled into wealth through marriage. They laughed at my modest clothes, my silence, my choice to drive an old car instead of flaunting their imported toys. They never knew that beneath the disguise, I had built an empire, quietly, patiently, in the shadows of their contempt. But the worst wound came not from them, but from her. My wife, beautiful, poised, and venomous. The woman I once loved for her fire now used it to scorch me. At first I thought her coldness was stress, that her sharp words were temporary storms. But as the years passed, I realized she despised me, not for what I lacked, but because I refused to bow to her world, refused to make her wealth my identity. It was during one of those cold winters that I met Clara. She wasn't glamorous. She wasn't draped in diamonds or parading in designer dresses. She worked at a small cafe near my office, her hands always dusted with flour, her hair tied loosely, strands falling into her eyes as she smiled at strangers. She noticed me before anyone else did. When I ordered the same black coffee every morning, she remembered. When I looked tired, she asked if I'd eaten. It was simple. Human kindness, something I hadn't felt in years. At first, I told myself it was harmless. She was a friend, someone who reminded me that not every word had to cut. But the way she laughed, the way her eyes softened when she listened, it broke through walls I didn't know I had built. One evening, after another humiliating dinner where my wife's family mocked me for bringing cheap wine, I found myself outside Clara's cafe long after it had closed. She was cleaning, the glow of warm light spilling onto the snow. She opened the door when she saw me, worry flashing across her face. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice trembling with sincerity. That night I broke. I told her everything, about the marriage that was more prison than home, about the empire I kept hidden, about the loneliness that gnawed at me despite the facade of wealth. She didn't flinch, didn't pry for numbers or power. She just listened, tears glistening in her eyes as though my pain were her own. It was the first time in years someone touched me with tenderness. Her hand found mine. Hesitant, almost afraid, but when I held it, the ache in my chest eased. What began as stolen conversations turned into long walks, secret dinners, laughter that felt forbidden but necessary. And one night, under the hush of falling snow, I kissed her. It was wrong, I knew it, yet it felt more right than anything I had done in years. The affair wasn't about passion at first, it was survival. With Clara, I was seen. With Clara, I was not the silent husband mocked at polished tables, but a man who could breathe, who could dream. She never asked me to leave, never pushed for promises. She gave me what I had forgotten, the feeling of being loved without condition. But secrets, like shadows, grow heavier with time. At home, my wife grew suspicious, though she never cared enough to ask outright. Her contempt shifted into a sharper edge. She paraded her lovers discreetly, assuming I was too weak to notice. Perhaps that's why she didn't question the late nights at the office, or why my eyes no longer searched for hers across the dinner table. The truth is, by the time Christmas came again, I had already made my decision. That night, as her family laughed and toasted, as she announced with her cruel smirk that the garage, cold, unheated, humiliating, was ready for me to sleep in. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just smiled silently. Because I knew something they didn't. My empire was no longer hidden. The companies I had built in secrecy, the wealth I had sheltered from their greedy eyes, it was all mine, and soon it would be free from her. I left their glittering mansion with my dignity, intact, and drove straight to Clara's small apartment, where the smell of fresh bread filled the air, where warmth wasn't measured in square footage, but in the softness of her embrace. She opened the door, worry etched across her face, but when she saw the calm in my eyes, she smiled. For years, I had been caged by pride, by fear of what leaving would mean. But now I understood. Love was not a war of appearances, nor a stage for humiliation. It was the quiet sanctuary found in the arms of someone who saw me, not for what I owned, but for who I was. And so, while the snow fell outside and laughter echoed in mansions that no longer mattered, I chose her. I chose peace over rage, love over pride. I chose the woman who had given me back my soul when I thought it was lost forever. Because sometimes the greatest revenge is not in revealing your empire, but in walking away from those who never deserved a seat at your table.